Good morning.
No.
Welcome back to Joe on the job site with my guest, Joe Westgate. We've just finished walking the job, and he has been a second pair of eyes for me to take a look at the schedule and how we're doing on the project. We, as always, participate in stretch and flex, and I can tell he's old and retired because every time he bent over, it sounded like a bowl of Rice Krispies going off. So he got into our huddle in the morning meetings, and he provided some valuable insight, asking some good schedule questions to our supers and foremans in the huddle. We walk back in and we're sitting down now. We're going to get started, and our topic's going to be the schedule. I'm glad that he's sitting down because as he was coming up the steps into the office trailer, it sounded like a whole bunch of creaks and groans in them bones. And well, he's sitting down, so now we can continue on. So, Joe, thanks for walking.
I'm so glad to be here today. I just wanted to know that I'm glad I am retired because, yes, I am not as flexible as I used to be. And your stretch and flex, whatever you call it, look more like a yoga class. So I'm not quite sure about that one, but the job did look good. And I identified a few problems. I mentioned them to you that I thought you could address and probably fix up later, but you said you would. So.
Oh, well, share them with me. Let's let the team, let's let the folks hear.
I was looking at your schedule, and you have a lot of procurement that's running up really early on. I think you should tie it more to when you actually need the product than having it here come in early.
Well, that's a good point. And as with many schedules, as we've done in the past, we refine them and tune them.
Yes, we do.
And
that's the beauty of it.
When you have 2,000 activities on the schedule, you never have a perfect schedule. You always find things to improve as you go along. As long as the end date don't kick out, you can improve them, make them flow better.
Well, even if the end date kicks out, that's a natural course of the schedule sometimes.
It is.
So.
Unfortunately, the owners don't like it, and it gets into a discussion we don't like. So,
right.
And speaking of the schedule, and notice what you caught on the schedule. What are some of the lists of the components in the schedule, and how do you use them? And what is their principal function? Sort of like the WBS.
Well, the WBS is the work breakdown structure. All that does is, in Primavera, separates the different areas of the construction project, such as site work, foundation, shell, and finishes, perhaps, and punch list, stuff like that.
Or floors,
right.
Multi-story.
Multi-story, you do it by floor, or you can do it by area, so forth. So you have it's a way to make your big schedule into mini schedules. And they're more manageable and more control over that to do.
So it helps form a logic run that you can actually move in the schedule. If something is out of sequence, you can just move the WBS and help it out. So when we were updating the schedule, you always talked about relationships. And there were 4: start to start, finish to finish, finish to start, and start to finish. And you had 2 that you always said you wanted to use. And the one thing I remember is you never have a negative lag.
That's the way they do it today. Now, when I first started scheduling, I went to Primavera classes and learned Primavera classes. And you could have a negative lag. Nothing wrong with it. All it means is you got to finish start of -2. That means 2 days before that activity finishes, the next activity could start. We've got into the world of litigation now constantly with all the schedules that it does have an impact on float. So the best thing to do is not do the negative lags anymore. What you do is a start to start lag. If it's a 10-day duration, you could do a start to start 8. And then you can put a finish to finish lag on it to the end of the other activity.
It's the same thing, so to speak.
Yeah, but that one is called no open starts and finishes.
That's good.
And that's
So when you're passing through that, one of the other components is the float.
yes.
So the float reflects what for us in the schedule?
The float is the amount of time it has before it impacts the next activity. So your longest path of the schedule will have 0 float or negative float if you're behind. So there you'll see 0, and you can do a float report and you can see this activity has no time before this next activity happens, and so on and so on, all the way down the line.
So the float part actually helps you make and develop your critical path and
Yes.
longest path.
Yes.
So what would be the difference between a critical path and the longest path? When would you use one and when would you not?
Okay. Well, the critical path is anything with 0 float or less,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever you determine it to be. You can make it anything under 10 days or less.
Right?
Okay. The longest path, critical path, is from point A start to point Z finish when you get there.
Right.
Now, you can have like a high school. You have many, many buildings.
Right.
And you can have the overall longest path from when the job starts to when it finishes. But let's say you want to track a critical path. You've got 10 buildings, and you know the first building isn't going to finish last. It's going to finish first.
Right.
And you want to make sure that first building finishes at that time, the second building finishes at that time, and so on down the line. So you put a
Constraint.
a constraint to say must finish by this certain date.
And that's you go into the menu and
So,
pick your day you want and finish on or after, finish on or before, finish by this day.
and what happens is by doing that, the float, if not, you would have a big number of float for the punch out of that building, let's say 100 days.
Yeah, because it isn't tied correctly.
It's tied correctly. It's tied to the end, but the end is way over here, but you're finishing this building over here.
Right.
So it's got 100 days of float on it. If you lock that down, now you're building a critical path to that area that's going to show you no float.
So you could get it in the one building.
Well, the main thing is that when you're doing your schedule update, you're going to look at float. If you see something that has 100-day float on it, you're not going to throw a flag. But if you see something that comes up with 0 float or negative float, you're going to go, whoa, I got a problem here. This building is slipping. Why? Why is this building slipping? And that building continues to slip. Is it going to slip the next building to slip? And eventually it'll have the railroad effect of pushing everything down the line.
Right.
So that's why you can have a multiple critical paths, but one longest path.
And the longest path is from start to finish.
Right. Or the day to date.
Or the day to day. Yeah. And the critical path you can have in a particular
Right.
building to building to building.
Yes.
So that way you could see your hot spots of work
Right.
that you need to concentrate on.
I've had many consultants argue with me that how can your job be on schedule when you have negative float? Well, the negative float isn't on the critical path, the longest path. It's on a critical path that we established so we could track.
So it's only in that area that would
Only
be
in that area.
negative.
Right.
And that's because you had a goal date. It's a
That you wanted to
24 month project and you're at month 13 and you're
that
going
building
to
is
finish.
supposed to finish that.
Yeah.
Because if that building slips, then it's starting to tell you something that maybe I got to look at the other parts of the schedule because now you're compressing everybody.
Right.
This date hasn't changed, but this is going like this and compressing. That means you're probably going to have to work more hours,
Maybe another shift.
another shift or another day,
Saturdays,
Saturdays to
yeah.
make up. Right. So and all that does is it's an early warning detection system that will let you know that, hey, building A has got a problem. So far, building B, C, and D are all doing well, and the end date's still holding. Because the critical path is still running through structures, perhaps.
Right.
And you're on finishes on building A.
And if you start to slip, you may need additional manpower to hold it while keeping the rest of it moving forward.
Or it has no impact at all. And all you have to do is you check with the superintendent, the project manager, and say, hey, I can reset this date to this new date that we got and keep tracking so we'll know if it slips anymore.
That's a lot of thinking.
It is, but it works.
It does work.
A schedule is a tool for you to use.
Mhm.
It's no good if you
Don't use it.
use it. If you just take it, throw it in your desk drawer, and walk away and let the subs run your job, then I can't get an accurate update on your job.
Yeah, and if you let the subs run your job, you're liable to have out of sequence work.
Oh yeah, well the out of sequence is a real thing in schedules because sometimes you're forced to go to another area because somebody wasn't ready or something else wasn't ready. So yeah, a schedule is going. A schedule should be called a schedule. It should be called a plan. A schedule is they use them for trains and airplanes. Basically, you are setting in place a plan of how you're going to get this job built,
Right.
and it's like a roadmap. So
And it's a little fluid.
it's got to be fluid. If it can't be rigid.
Yeah.
I've never worked on a schedule that it's been accurate from the very first baseline to the very last update. This does never happen. If somebody tells you it does, they're full of it. But it has to be fluid. It has to. You're on your way from Orlando to Philadelphia in '95 shut down. Well, you figure a workaround to get around that, and you still get back on track.
Same thing with the
And
schedule.
that's what changing logic does.
Yeah.
And as long as you document it, put it in your narrative why you changed the logic, tell a story to the owner and your upper management.
So that's a good point. You mentioned narrative. What does a narrative do for not only team but for the company? When you make it, what kind of information is in there for them to read?
It just tells you what you've done this month, what work's put in place, where the critical path is at, if the critical path has changed, if you gained any time or if you lost any time, and you just put it out. If you had a delay occur on the project because of something, and you then will go and build a fragment into the schedule. It's called project impacts, and that's under the WBS. So you find out when the problem started, who was notified, what days, you put all that into your schedule. If it needs more material, procurement and shop drawings, you put that into it. And a fabrication time, put that in, and then you tie it back to your main schedule, what it impacted. Then you recalculate. That way you can pull up that little fragment and show Mr. Owner, this is why we have slipped a week. It's because that you wanted to make a change and we had to do this to get the change completed.
So RFI could become a fragment.
RFI is very common.
Because if the superintendent has to write the RFI, and it's not a responsibility of the subcontractor that they broke something or didn't put something in right, and we were asking for a fix. But for example, a clarification on an RFI for something that could not be seen in the drawings or plans or specs, which added work. So you would capture, all right, I wrote the RFI on the 10th and I sent it in, and that would be your start of your fragment. And then you would have to forecast down into the days when you would get this RFI answered, when you get approval to go to work, and when you would actually work to reflect the true challenge in the schedule.
Now, the key is not every RFI needs to be implemented into a schedule.
Right.
Then you got to make the document too hard to handle and to work with. What you got to do is you got to sit down with your team and say, hey, if we do this, is this going to impact our end date? Is it anyway? I mean, it'd be not impacted at all. You may this item may have 1,000 days of float on it, not impact you. But if it's a power source that you need to get permanent power on or roof drying on, then you know it's gonna be impacting, and that's when you have to put it in.
And then that's something you have to make sure you bring up in the owners OACA meeting.
Yeah.
And let them know. And then that's another letters of communication to
Yes.
let the owner know.
Mhm.
Too many times they're not notified and they say, well, you're gonna miss your date, but you never told me about this problem.
Right.
I had
And a lot of contracts say you have to have, if once the problem is discovered, you need to let them know immediately. And it's like a 2-week period or something.
Right.
Something like that.
finished one job I was on. The owner waited 12 weeks to select the color
Yeah. Well,
of the punch windows.
that's what you need to document.
And that we lost our game time. You know, we were
Right.
ahead of schedule. We lost our game time. We had to do workarounds
Mhm.
for the drywall guy, temporary windows, a cost added, a number of things because the windows were not selected. And it's critical that when you have these challenges that we notify the owner that this is impacting the project and is documented. Because when the days don't hit, some projects you can't extend the end date, but some of them the owner will at least allow you to cover the money for you to work second shift or extra manpowers to catch it up due to it.
Yeah.
But you have to have it documented.
Yeah, you gotta tell a story to them.
Yeah.
To know it and understand. And most people are reasonable. They won't fight you, but there's a lot of people that will fight you tooth and nail for every little thing they can get because they think you should have known.
Yes, I've had that.
That's why I hired you.
Yeah.
You should have known that I wanted to put another floor on top of this building. And it should not impact my schedule. That's the mentality of it.
Where in writing does it show that? I've had those,
Yeah. Well,
but
truth is stranger than fiction.
in scheduling, that with it being fluid, it's our path to work, it's our direction to follow. And when you update it, there's a part in there that's called progress, project override, or retained logic. Is that right, or is it progress override?
Progress override. And what I think we discussed this in our last segment. Progress override just says when you're updating the schedule, that it's easier on the scheduler to say, okay, this activity started. I don't really care about its predecessors not being done. Right. And the only thing you got to watch out for is this: you had a 10-day activity, and 8 days into it, you started its successor, which you said was going to have to be a finish to start. It'll carry those 2 days onto that activity's end date that you started.
So instead of it getting credit for those 2 days you started, you won't.
You won't. It'll keep it out there like it was. Retain logic will give you that same problem, but it'll cause a report to come out that says you're out of sequence work.
Right. Seen that a lot.
A lot of these companies now that are using consultants to meticulously go through every bit of your schedule will come up and ding you with that you have out of sequence work and you're not getting the accurate float calculation. So what we try to do is, okay, we'll put a little note on the activity saying this activity's started earlier, so we had to change the relationship from a finish to start to a start to start of 8. And then explain that. You can give a report of all the activities you changed.
Right.
And
so
the owner has a reference of it.
What between progress override and retain logic, what does it do? Does it do differently to the float? Give you a different float?
It does give you a difference in float. The best way to do it is to do the start to start and finish to finish relationship. That way you get the best calculating of it
on the float.
Right.
So if you're doing the schedule, what's the one you always say is the best to use?
I used to use progress override a lot on simple jobs, but when you get into a litigation purpose and you think you're going to have any kind of trouble, then you got to use retain logic.
So retain logic is really the better way to go. But you got to do a few changes.
Now, like I said, Primavera put it in there for a reason. 99% of the people could use progress override and never have a problem. the jobs come in on time. They're not going to go to litigation. Not going to be fought off after, or stuff like that. But in today's world, with owners and developers being so savvy with their scheduling, just cover your
Cover your
cover your bases.
cover your bases. And so we've developed the schedule, we put it in,
Mhm.
owner approved it, we've got our baseline,
Yep.
we've gone through bidding,
Yep.
we're working through the project,
Mhm.
we've got our ties and the tags and all of our other little parts and pieces. And you mentioned a few minutes ago a fragnet.
Yeah.
Now, fragnets should be, as a rule of thumb, so here's a comparison. Mr. Concrete guy poured the floor in the locker room of the sports arena at the wrong elevation.
Okay.
They either have to chip it out and
Mhm.
drop it,
Yeah.
or something else has to be done. So, and then another version would be Mr. Engineer, who we file the elevations, set the elevation on some of the structural steel at the incorrect elevation, and it made a
It's
hump.
the same thing. What you got to do is
You
you got to
still
correct
put a
it.
fragnet in
Yeah.
for both.
You got to correct it,
Right.
and you put that under the project impacts heading, and that's what you do. And you found out the elevation was wrong on this day. It went to the owner and the engineer on this day. They created new shop drawings, and we had to order steel
Right.
and put it in, and then tie that back to the finish of those area.
Yeah, and you may have to have it as a workaround, or then you've just created out of sequence work.
Well, no, because you're correcting the out of sequence work.
Well, so in one particular project, the owner walked in and decided to change all of the ceiling finishes
Yeah, that's a change order.
1 week before we were doing floors.
Yeah, that's a change order.
So we wound up skipping the ceiling finishes, putting in the marble floor and all the systems that had.
So that is out of sequence work.
Yeah, and then we put the mud mat, and then we bought the material that was impact rated and covered the floor, and then we did all of our other work, and then came back and did the ceiling.
That's all you're reworking.
Yeah.
So you keep the ceiling work that's still not done on that area. You go up from there to your impacts off that activity.
Yeah.
That you noticed it. And then you tie all of that back to that ceiling being finished, which would do your punch list. And you may have to change some other logic. Painting, I'm not sure what else you do, maybe HVAC finishes, fire
Something,
protection finishes.
whatever goes in afterwards.
But that will all get pushed out due to that fragment.
Yeah, the lighting, the
Right.
finished lighting, the finished grills.
But a basic change in out of sequence work is usually cabinets went in earlier than you had thought they were going to come in. So we're able to get them in ahead of this other guy. So that's when you're going to go change that logic around
to make it fit.
to make it work.
So in the details we've just went through, you do a lot of superintendent updates.
Mhm.
And in our younger days, you and I used to do them together. We'd walk the job, you'd
Yeah.
show me how to capture what's there and estimate what it needed to finish.
Mhm.
And we would put that in the schedule. For an upcoming superintendent, what would you say or see would be some key items the superintendent in this particular schedule has an actual start, remaining duration, actual finish on it?
Mhm.
What are some things that you could suggest for a superintendent to always be doing on a schedule?
Well, when I do an update, first of all, you do your baseline. Once your baseline is done, you lock it out. You never touch it again.
It's in the
You
storage.
copy it to update 1, update 2, update 3, or however the company you work for
Right.
is the systems. So on that particular update, once I'm done with it, the update that week, I will print out an update form,
Right.
and it goes out about 6 months. And it has, just like you have there, it has an opening for actual start, actual finish, remaining duration.
So I got to jump in on that one. Remaining duration.
Mm-hmm.
The younger superintendents I've had, they try to put a date. And
That's okay.
so what I've always asked them to do was your data date. We know what the data date is that we're updating on. Put the remaining days and let the computer do the work. Because otherwise, if you put a date,
If he tells me he's got 2 days left, I will sit there and ask him, okay, so that means today's Monday. So you got Tuesday, you'll be done by Wednesday. Oh, no, I got 2 days left, but it's not going to be until Friday. I said, well, then you don't have 2 days left.
you would have to put 5
So you would have to put 4 days remaining.
or 4. Yeah.
We calculate at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Give you credit for the work you put in place that day. So that's what you would do. And so a lot of times I'd ask them, you know what the remainder, when are you going to finish it? Just tell them. And they tell me, and I can go into the computer and just put in a date. Or they write in the date they're going to finish, and it calculates. Primavera already does it for you.
Yeah. So if they're updating the schedule, they need to fill in
Mhm.
the actuals and
Actual start.
actual
If it's
start.
not finished, a date that they plan on finishing it, or a remaining duration if they're sure.
Yeah. So if it was supposed to finish on September 12th and they say, yep, we're on schedule, then the remaining duration could be September 12th.
Right. And I would, if they would just, a lot of times if it's a good date, just check it. Put a check mark next to it. I know as a scheduler that date's good, and I'll keep that date in there.
So when you're doing an update and the super's going through and he realizes RFI is impacting his schedule, there's a notes column on there that he can write in.
Yeah.
RFI impact.
I put that on the actual activity itself in a notebook.
Then go back and build the fragnet if it's needed.
If it's needed.
Right.
Right.
So when a superintendent's updating, I've always believed that at least once a week, walk your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
At least
every day.
And
I'm not a buyer of once a week.
Well,
you can lose so much data. That superintendent needs to be walking around with that schedule at least once a day.
Yeah.
Or at least look at it once a day.
And see what's up.
Yeah. What he should be working on. What's coming up next.
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing that, then what good is the plan?
You're not following it.
Right.
So that's one thing I like about the iPads now. I can put my iPad, turn it on my computer, turn on the iPad and carry it around the site now. And I have an iPad pen. I can write notes on the thing with. That is just, it helps you get through it and have everything ready. I go back to the office, I sit down, I fill in the paper ones, and then I'm ready to keep going. And it gives me an opportunity to look and see, oh crap, this is coming up. I didn't allow for that. What are we going to, I need to do? I need to get my stick together here and start talking to people, the fencing, or make sure the millwork guy, call him and say, okay, you're not due for 6 weeks. I'm just calling to check to see that your 6 weeks is a good day for you. You're supposed to start on Monday, December 12th. Are you good for that still? And then if he's not, you got something to address. If he is, you got to go.
On my weaker superintendents that are new, green, or not as strong as a seasoned general superintendent, I will create a must-hit list. This must-hit is a 6-week look ahead.
Just 6 weeks.
6-week look ahead
from data date
of anything critical.
And are you using the critical path?
I'm using anything critical,
which would be zero flow
or negative. And if they don't do anything else, hit that. Make sure you're looking at that. And then, and I've had great success with some of my younger, inexperienced superintendents when I do that for them.
How do you get them to get deeper into the schedule when you're coaching them? That's a great tool that must have that critical 6 weeks. But how do you get them to get deeper into the schedule?
When they get burned because they don't have something on the site to put in,
Yeah.
But then again, it's not the superintendent's fault, it's the scheduler's fault.
I don't know if it ever came that way when I was doing it. I was always the one that got the fault.
Yeah.
So
it happens.
Joe, I appreciate your information, your conversation today, walking the job. I always
Mhm.
appreciate the questions and the ideas. And as a superintendent, a second pair of eyes, a little oversight from someone else that's not on the job is always a great tool. You have to ask yourself the question, oh, I need to fix something, and you got to be honest with yourself.
Well, one other thing to add. Back in my Connecticut days, we were working on this performing arts center, and we were behind about good 3 months. I had a general superintendent up there tell his other superintendent, junior superintendents, "Hey, you see that guy over there walking up here to our trailer? That's your bonus right there." Now, he didn't mean it in a good way. He meant it in a bad way. And the truth is, he's right. I was his bonus. If he would have used the schedule, followed it, did it, they wouldn't have lost money. They would have made money, and everybody would have been happy. Because I'm all about making money.
Right.
I want my company to make money, so they can make me have some money, and
Yep.
that works.
Income
right there.
goes up.
We're in business for money, not for fun.
Right. Enjoy your work, but like to get
Right.
paid.
You like to get paid.
Joe, I appreciate you're on the job today. Thank you for coming and all the work you've done for us and walking the job, looking at the things, your insights to scheduling. I enjoyed it. Thank you for being here today. And it was great having you.
It was
and,
great to be here.
Always enjoy talking to you. You've been a mentor to me for scheduling for years. And I want to say thank you of what you've taught me and how I've learned. We had Joe Brown on before. He was one of your mentors that you've trained. Excellent with schedules. So
Yes.
you've made an
One of the best.
impact in this industry with your knowledge, and we appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Keep
This-
up the good work.
Well, thank you, sir, and enjoy retirement.
Oh, I do.
This is Joe on the job site with another edition. Thank you for today, and we will see you next week.